Welcome into episode 5 of the Denmark and Marsh podcast. This recording is going on a Thursday night, February 22nd. We tried to get one early this week, but I forgot Monday's a holiday for some people. Some people work on holidays and some don't. I'm not looking at anybody in particular. But we're here nonetheless, coming off of a Gators loss from the night before. I'm now officially a Gator fan of basketball after watching 5-10 minutes of the end of regulation and overtime. That I haven't watched any Gator basketball really all year.
I was going to say, is this your first? Is that the first 10 minutes of the season you've watched?
Yeah, I watched a little bit here and there, but this is when I actually, I got home after Hack's show, and I was like, oh, dang, we're up 6-7. And then, I literally turned it on, and then we stopped making shots, and Alabama started making everything. So we're going to get into that a little bit. College football, the playoff is set for the next 2 years. We got 12 teams. Seems like there's going to be 14. They're going to expand it, obviously, in 26. And there's another thing that just came out right before we started this pod. Greg Sankey wants to move signing day up 2 weeks earlier. So we're going to get into that as well. So before we start, I'm Dylan Denmark. That's Graham Marsh. You can get us on Twitter at 1010XL Denmark and at 1010XL Graham. For the ones that are new to this podcast, I am the producer for Jaguars Today with Mike Dempsey and Tony Smith, and producer for Hacker on Hacker After Dark, and Graham does sales, videos, and all kind of stuff. Anything y'all see mostly on social, Graham probably does some of that stuff.
Or the other podcasts.
Yeah,
for 1010XL, I produce those as well. And I produce every podcast here, so if you listen to any of the non-regular radio shows, like Campo and Joe, Catching Up with Tommy Mack, all those, I produce those. So.
I call you a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah,
you do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I do.
So
I'm feeling so rested, by the way, because of my day off. I know you're probably dragging, ready for the week to end.
I could fall asleep right now if there was.
I'm wide awake. I'm bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. Yeah. I'm ready for a pod.
Yeah. So I learned a couple of guys' names on the Gator basketball team last night. I haven't watched much of the season. It's a fun team to watch. I've kept hearing that from the guys at the station. I'm like, okay, you know, you're a fan of the team, whatever.
Right.
No, they're a fun team to watch. We had Mark Wise.
I tried to tell you.
Yeah, you did. Mark Wise came on Hacker's show right before the Bama game, and he was like, Bama does not shoot any mid-range, and they just shoot threes. And I think the first half they were like 2 for 18, and then the second half, really, they started getting going a little bit. Even though Florida lost, you had the lead in the second half with about 5 minutes left, and it kind of slipped away a little bit from you, it felt like, and then Bama jumps on you in overtime. It felt like that was a good game, even though you lost.
Yeah, it was a great game. No, I totally agree. I mean, a lot of people, because if you are a Gator fan and watch the team on a regular basis, then you're starting to catch on to how good this team can be and how good they have been. But I would have to imagine the casual fan, there's probably a lot of casual college basketball fans that haven't watched a dribble of Florida until last night that probably don't really know that, no, Florida's competing with good teams this year. They beat Kentucky at Rupp a couple of weeks ago when Kentucky was ranked 10th in the country. And last night, it was the most interesting thing to me and what makes me confident that Florida is going to be able to make some noise in March is on the road, great crowd. Bama had a great crowd last night. Every time Bama had some type of momentum-changing play that felt like, okay, now here comes their run, here comes their 10-2 run or whatever that's gonna put Florida away. Florida had an answer every single time, whether it be a Walter Clayton 3, a Zion pulling. He's got that little dribble step back, mid-range shot he takes, or Tyrese Samuel getting a touch around the rim, or Micah Handlockton getting a touch around the rim, or somebody getting to the line. They always had an answer the entire game, which was really impressive to me because that's hard to do against really good teams like Alabama on the road in the SEC. That's tough, and that's what keeps you in games against teams that are better than you and more talented than you overall. I mean, if Florida and Bama play 10 times, even as well as Florida's playing, Bama probably wins 7 to 8 times, I would say. But again, the most impressive part to me was they had an answer, and they never let the game get away from them. And it felt Bama had a huge dunk. They had like a big and one dunk, and they started hitting threes in the second half. There were multiple times in my head where I'm thinking, "Oh God, here it comes." And Florida stayed in it, and they were winning most of the game. And there was a point where I was like, they're really going to pull this off. They're going to win this game. And again, I know they didn't, but I totally agree. If you didn't know anything about Florida basketball before last night, I think you came away thinking that's a pretty damn good basketball team.
Yeah. I had the feeling last night, like, oh, this team can make an Elite Eight run. Like, having not watched much, I feel like they can win, like, multiple ways. Like,
100%.
The dude, I forget his name, the big white dude that just blocks, like, everything around him. Oh, my gosh. Like, that was unreal. I mean,
he's a tree, dude.
It's unreal how many times he did it. And then number 4, God, I sound like such an amateur.
Tyrese Samuel?
Yes, that dude was also pretty good. And then the guy that had 20-plus points, like 27 points, he made every free throw. Clayton.
Walter Clayton Jr.?
Yeah, Clayton looked pretty good, even though he didn't have a good field goal percentage. There's like a lot of good pieces where you can go, most college basketball previously, like you rely on like a guy or two to get your buckets. It doesn't seem like that's this Florida team. I mean, I'm assuming that's how it's been all year too.
It has, and I think a couple of guys have really come along. Walter Clayton Jr. at the beginning of the year, he's been a dynamic scorer all year, but at the beginning of the year, he had some turnover issues, and he's cleaned that up dramatically. He doesn't turn the ball over nearly as much. Zion Pullen has been the stalwart in this team all year. He's been the ball handler. He's been the guy that gets everybody composed. Remember Scotty Wilbekin?
Oh, yeah.
He's been Scotty Wilbekin. I don't know if he's that good yet, but he's been that guy.
A distributor of the ball, just knows how to set the tempo of the game.
And yes, and also like kind of same thing I was going back to a minute ago where I said Florida always had an answer when Bama was starting to get momentum. That guy. And that guy is critical to any team that's ever won a national championship has had this guy on their team. And you need it in the NBA too. You need a guy that because you can't call a timeout and regroup every possession. You need a guy that can regroup your squad on the fly.
And Florida was down like one timeout where they couldn't call a timeout. Was it late in the game? Was it overtime or end of regulation? They had I think it was one timeout at the end of regulation because they didn't call a timeout right before the last chance we had the ball. And that's, to me, that either shows that you like the position you were in or you're confident in your players and what they can do.
And I think it's both. I think Todd Golden liked the position they were in, like circumstantially. And I also think the guys he had on the floor are guys that he trusts to make the right play, get a good look. And for the most part, that's what's happened with this Florida team. There's been a couple times that the main issue they've had, and we briefly touched upon this last week, the main issue they've had this year is they'll get a big lead and they'll blow a lead. Like they'll blow a 20-point lead in the second half, and they've done that a couple times. They typically have hung on to win against teams that aren't as good.
A la LSU.
Yeah, exactly. If the LSU game was 15 seconds longer, LSU's gonna wins the game. Probably 10 seconds longer, honestly. But they won still. And it seems like they're getting even better in that regard as well. And it just feels like now watching this team, you're not... Look, when it comes down to the wire, especially against a really good team like Alabama, the truth is when there's a minute left and it's tied, you have no clue what's going to go down, right? You have no clue who's going to win. You're not sure, right? You obviously got to play it out. But you're confident this team is going to give themselves good looks and get at least a fair shake and a good chance to win. Instead of so many teams, particularly in college, you'll just have one guy in those kind of circumstances just dribble it out, till 2 seconds and jack up a stupid three. For the most part, they don't do that. They get good looks, they get to the line, and they get good guys in good positions to score.
So looking ahead the next 5 games, Florida's got Vandy twice, who's not any good, Missouri, South Carolina, and Bama. You figure, 3-2, 4-1 probably?
Yeah, getting Bama, and this has kind of been the main sentiment that people have echoed today. Man, am I excited to see those two teams rematch in Gainesville. That's going to be a really, really fun game because I felt like watching that game, those two teams were about dead even, and the difference was Bama being at home. So you get the Rowdy Reptiles around for that game. I'm really, really excited to watch that. Now, in a perfect world, you take care of business with those other upcoming games, especially Vandy. You need to beat them twice. I think the key for Florida down the stretch until tournament time starts in the SEC tournament and March Madness, they just can't, at this point, they can't lose trap games. Like, Florida's got a lot of momentum right now. People are starting to realize that this is a good ball club. They're playing well. Todd Golden's really got them in a good spot. The one thing that could kind of derail that momentum is go lose to a Vandy. You know, that type of thing. That would really take some wind out of their sails. They're not going to be screwed if that happens. They'll still make the tournament. They'll still be fine. But just in terms of momentum, that's the one thing they can't. They need to make sure they're on top of. The teams they need to win, or the games they need to win, teams they need to beat, they need to do so convincingly. And I think, sorry to answer your question.
No, you're good.
I'll say 4-1.
Okay.
I think they beat Bama and Gainesville, and I think they lose one of the other ones.
Okay, and they probably... You can't forecast what the tournament looks like in the SEC, but they probably win 2 games and they get to a 7 seed, 6 seed, potentially, you think? Everything I've seen right now is 8, 9, 10, maybe 7.
I think they'll end up being about a 7, when it's all said and done. If they were a little bit bigger of a brand name, then that same exact resume would probably get you a 5. But being that it's Florida and they haven't done a lot lately, because that matters.
Yep.
I mean, everyone knows that matters. When you're Kansas, when you're Duke, when you're UNC, you get a little bit of a bump on years that you're not, a solid 1 seed or whatever. But that's okay. I mean, I think Florida as a 7 seed, even like an 8, can make a lot of noise in the tournament. And I think they're consistent enough to where they're not going to lay an egg and lose. I mean, they could. I mean, anybody can lose round 1, but 1 seeds have lost round 1. But you know what I mean? Like, I agree with your earlier point that this team could make an Elite 8 run. Like, that doesn't mean they're going to, but they're good enough to.
Yeah, and it seems like, guys, it doesn't feel like it. I mean, it kind of does. Yes and no. Like, this, you haven't seen this good of a basketball team at Florida in like 6, 7 years. Like, you have to go before COVID.
Yeah. I would say the 2017 team that went to the Elite 8 was the last team.
Who was on that team? Like, who was your main dude?
That was a team where Chris Chioza hit the buzzer beater against Wisconsin.
Rick Barry and...
Canyon Barry. Rick Barry's son.
Yeah.
That was...
I remember that game.
That was Canyon Barry, Justin Leon, Chris Chioza, Casey Hill was on that team. A couple other guys. That was a good team, though.
Yeah.
That was a really good team. I want to say Igor Kulichov was on that team.
I remember that name.
Three-Gore.
Yeah.
Don't you love you some Three-Gore?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty sure he was on that team. That was a fun team. And that run was incredible. And that shot is... It's the greatest Gator basketball shot. Well, actually, no, the Mike Miller shot in the Final Four is the best Gator basketball shot of all time. It's the second best shot in Gator basketball history. Chris Chioza's buzzer beater 3. This team, if they make noise in March, has the potential to be a more fun team than that 2017 team.
Dang. All right, I'll hold you to that.
And they're like, you said that you're a newbie to watching this team and you kind of realize how much fun they are. Here's why they're fun. They have everything in terms of being a complete team and a fun team to watch. They have speed. They play with pace. They have athleticism. They can finish. They make free throws. Like, they play defense.
You got bigs. You got a good coach.
Right. Like, there's not one thing. The blowing leads thing, I guess, would be the main thing. But there's not one like basketball thing that like worries me. Like, oh, this team can't play defense. Or, oh, this team will have long scoring droughts. The Mike White special. They used to always have scoring droughts. They'd have a 6-minute scoring drought all the time. Or, oh, this team can't hit threes, or they can't make free throws. All those things are in play. So even when they lose, you feel like they at least gave themselves a fair shot to win.
So let's move on to college football. I forget which episode it was. A couple weeks ago, we kind of knew that something big was going to happen concerning the future of college football. So for the next 2 years, we're going to have a 5+7 model for the 12-team playoff, 5 conference champions, and 7 at large. So you'll have your SEC, your Big Ten, your ACC, your Big 12, and a group of 5 with 7 at large. Ironically, Notre Dame, if they do want to go undefeated, I think they are going to be one of those 7 at large teams. They won't get one of those top seeds. I was always a person, I never really screamed and shouted, and because I never really cared for expanding the playoff. I thought the 4 was fine. But when you know
you're wrong, by the way.
Yeah, okay. So when I knew money was going to overcome it, and it was going to happen anyway. So I was like, I'm not going to fight this fight, whatever. I've kind of changed. I still think 12 is too much. I think 8 would be the right number.
Wrong.
All right, Trump. I absolutely hate the automatic qualifiers. I hate automatic qualifiers.
So, sorry to cut you off. Can you say the format one more time
So it's 5+7
for the people that don't know?
So your 4 conference champions in a group of 5 with 7 at large.
Okay, so ACC, Big 10, Big 12, SEC. Those 4 champions are automatically in,
and the group of 5, whatever the highest seeded group of 5 is.
Okay, that's your 5th, and then 7 at large. All right, I got
yes,
it. Cool. I knew this was approved, but I hadn't looked at the details.
Yeah. So that's what the playoff will look like for the next 2 years. I've changed my concept and way I think because, one, we're going away from the divisions. So you're going to get a true conference championship from the 2 best teams in the conference.
Divisions in the conference.
Right.
Meaning there's no SEC East and West.
Right.
There's no Atlantic, Coastal, and Atlantic.
Right. And also, you're going to have way more bigger games. It's not like it was before where Georgia's this really good team and you have realistically 2 or 3 big games. It's like, okay, you got to play Florida, but you got to bye before. You have a Bama early in the year, and then Auburn might be good. You have legitimately now where it's like 4 or 5 games where, okay, if we don't play our A game, like we can be beat. That's what I like, that aspect of it.
But it causes more of a regular season grind.
Right.
The more tough games there are.
Right. I just hate the automatic qualifier because for a weaker conference, and I'll just say the ACC, it was the Pac-12, but now it's the ACC, where like in 2017 you had a USC team that was pretty good toward the end of the year with Sam Darnold. I think they were 9-3, and I think they almost lost to Stanford with 7-5, and Stanford wasn't good. Granted, you had divisions, but I didn't want to see a situation where a team that you know is not good just have one good game and then automatically just make a playoff because it's an automatic qualifier. Like that's dumb to me. Like if you watch the whole 12-week season, 13-week season, I'm sorry, you can know that, okay, this team is better than that team. And then you go down the line.
Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
I think this is the first topic of the pod that we've
disagreed on.
We've disagreed on a couple things, but this is the first one we might really disagree on. So I'm excited for this. Let me tell you why the 12 team and the new format is the correct way to go. Because now that the Pac-12 is gone, and you've got these 4 in the group of 5, when the year starts, every Power 4 now, still feels weird to say, every Power 4 team in America.
Let's just call it Big 4.
Yeah, sure. Big 4. Fantastic 4. All of those, and those are the teams that matter in college football. It's great that we're including group of 5 and some at-larges, but I'm talking about the big boys. Okay. Every last one of those programs gets to start the season now and say, I know that if I do this, I will make the playoff. And it removes, there still will be because of at-larges and all that, but it removes a substantial amount of subjectivity from the process. And it's the first time in the history of college football that has been true. And that is a good thing in my opinion. I am of the opinion that Florida State got completely jobbed this past year. I thought they got screwed. And the reason I thought they got screwed is not because I think that if they played Alabama on a neutral field, they would have beaten Alabama with Tay Rodemaker or Brock Glenn at QB. I don't believe they would have won the game. However, they went undefeated and won their conference, and it's a major conference. They deserve a shot at the postseason, whatever that is. So, now, in my opinion, and you know this as well as I do, there will still be people bitching and moaning when they get left out of the at-large, and there will still be those conversations, and this team should have made it over this team, blah, 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 right? But if you're in the Fantastic Four, whatever you want to call it, the argument against you when you are lobbying that your team should have been in when they got left out and they were number 13 at the end of the season or whatever, you can tell that person, well, you should have won your conference. You knew a goal that you could have achieved that could have put you in the playoff, and you didn't achieve it. So I'm not going to feel bad. Like, let's say that a Florida State-esque team had not won their conference, so they didn't get let in, but they were a one loss or whatever. I would not feel bad for that team in this format, even if they maybe arguably should have been in one of the 7 at-larges, because you could have won your conference and you didn't. But now that there's a clear blueprint, I know exactly what I've got to do, and if I don't do that, then I open myself up to subjectivity that removes a lot of excuses, and in my opinion, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's true, but you're still going to have... For me, if it's not Florida State, and say it's... give me a Pac-12 team, a random one.
Stanford.
Okay. If it's Stanford that went undefeated and they get left out, the same situation Florida State had, I don't think people are as riled up because it's the brand of Stanford. And I think it hits different for us for Florida State because they're closer to us and we know them and all that. For all the people that all the time are like, we don't have to worry about it no more because there's not going to be any arguing. No, the goalpost is going to be moved.
Oh, 100%. There's still going to be tons of arguing.
And so my point is, you're going to get to 12, and if it's Florida, say every team that's in the top 12 is 10-2, but Florida had the hardest schedule. Florida goes 9-3. I think people are going to be just as crazy and just as loud, just as Florida State was last year.
Oh, of course. But again, you now have a rebuttal to that person of, well, you could have won your conference and you didn't. And to me, because there was an objective goal that you could have reached that you failed to do, you run out of an excuse. I totally agree with you. There's still going to be tons of arguing. And that's what we do. People like arguing, right? People argue all the time, especially in college football. But I've always thought that the biggest issue with college football is that there has never been a clear, direct path to making the playoff, where I know for a fact if I do X, Y, and Z, I will be there.
Well, because there's no, like, every conference is different. Like, that's what I can't stand when people compare college football to the NFL. The difference between the Chiefs that won the Super Bowl and the Panthers, they could play 10 times. The Chiefs would probably win all 10 times, but the Panthers could compete with them probably for 3 games. Like, the Panthers, before they played Jacksonville, almost beat Green Bay in overtime. In college football,
the Panthers could beat the Chiefs, and it wouldn't be like the biggest upset in the history of the sport.
Yeah, it wouldn't be Appalachian State beating Michigan.
Right.
In college football, it's not like that. Like, people want to make college football like the NFL, make it black and white. And I always had the sentiment that you always knew, like, throughout the year, your number 1 team, then you had a top 3, and then there was a little drop, and then top 5 could legitimately win a college football title. Now with NIL and the circus that it is now, where there's more parity
in the portal,
like last year, we legitimately could have seen 8 different teams win the college football title, and I would have been like, I could see that.
I agree.
I like 8. I'll be fine with 8. I feel like 8 is like the perfect cap.
I don't even think Michigan would have been favored in, like, neutral site. Like, Georgia would have been favored.
Georgia's favored over everybody. Georgia had the better team.
Yeah.
Like, Georgia could have played Alabama 10 times, and Georgia beats Alabama 9 out of 10 times. That one time was just happened for the SEC title.
But to me, that's kind of the point, is with the 12 team, and there probably is a number where I'd say this is too many, but I have always been a proponent of playoff expansion.
To how many?
Again, that's what I'm saying. Like, there is a cap. I'm sure there's a number where I would say, okay, this is too much. I honestly think 12 is good. If it was 8, I wouldn't think that was terrible or anything. I don't think that's like a bad idea.
I just think you're having one more excessive game that you don't need. Like, you're going to, like, it feels like, obviously the money, but it's like we're going to put this caveat in because we want to make everybody happy. Like, yeah, okay, we legitimately feel like they didn't say this hasn't been reported. This hasn't been in the discussion room. But, like I said, 8 teams. Okay, we'll make it 12 because we can make a little bit more money in the first round. First 4 teams can have a bye, and then the rest of y'all can play on campus.
Like, those games are going to be sick.
That's kind of what it feel like.
Those games are going to be so sick, by the way. Think about, like, Ohio State hosting LSU or something. Like, that's sick.
On campus, that makes it so much better.
That's so cool.
On a neutral site, it's just put them in Dallas. It's not as big.
Neutral's not as cool.
No.
But my kind of, because there's a lot of complex things here, but my kind of general take on the college football postseason has always been that any argument that supports playing more football and doing less arguing is a good argument.
Okay.
More football, less politics.
So now
because now with 12 teams instead of 4, yes, you are right. There are still going to be programs that complain and bitch and moan and say they got jobbed and they should have been put in. 100% correct. But because that team is ranked 13 instead of 5, they have less steam on their argument. Well, versus a Florida State team that didn't lose a single game, and the only ding on their resume was an injury, and they still won every game in front of them.
The final 2 games. If they win,
they did, but they won.
Yes,
but they won.
But we all know, if you watch college football, in 2000, Miami gets left out of Florida State. In 2006, it was catastrophic that Florida got in over Michigan. In 2008, Texas beats Oklahoma, yet they put Oklahoma in over Texas. In 2011, it was we can't have Alabama and LSU, and then Oklahoma State gets left out. Like, that's the sport.
Yeah, but that's not a good thing. It's a good thing now that more of these debates are going to get settled on the field.
So
instead of politicking about it. Let's play more ball.
So let me ask you this: do you think this? I'm not going to use the term water down, but it doesn't make the regular season like as meaningful. Because to me, it's like,
I guess a little, but I mean a little. Yes, it will some. Like this past season, Michigan Ohio State was a playoff game, and it wouldn't be a playoff game in this format. There would still be stakes and it'd still be important, but it wouldn't be. Ohio State lost that game and their season was over effectively, right? So a little bit, yeah. But each game is still going to be critically important. It isn't like there's going to be games that just don't matter. College football doesn't play enough games, and there still aren't enough teams that make the playoffs when you consider how many teams there are for each game to not still be really important.
So even if a team is 11-0 and they're playing a team that's not good in rivalry week, you think they're just going to be like, just whatever. We're already in the conference title. We're gonna rest some guys to play in the conference title, and then because we know that's going to be our game. Like any guy that's banged up, we'll just sit them out because this game doesn't matter. I don't like that aspect of it because it's becoming like the NFL.
I don't either, but wouldn't there still be seeding at play?
Yeah, but
because those 4 teams, like the 4 automatic qualifiers, they get an automatic qualifier, but where they're ranked is not certain, right?
Correct.
So what if I'm undefeated
and you're a 1 seed?
Yeah, but there's a 2 and a 3 seed that are on my ass. Well, I want to show out. If I'm Alabama and I'm going to be a 1 seed, but I got Auburn at the end of the season. If Auburn takes me to overtime and, Michigan's undefeated too, well, they're going to probably leapfrog me if they beat Ohio State by 14.
And here's another thing.
So I think unless in some way you're just like a shoe-in 1 seed and you're just guaranteed you're going to be the 1 seed, which happens sometimes, but it's not. I feel like typically there's at least a couple teams that at least have an argument for being the number 1 team. It's usually like 2 to 3. It's not a lot. It's not a long list.
Max 3.
But I feel like it's rare that a team is going to have like legitimately nothing to play for. I think every game they're still going to have something to play. I don't think it'll be like the NFL where certain teams can't really go higher or lower, so they do rest some guys at the end of the season. I think there's always going to be some motivation.
So I heard this from Chuck Oliver's show, I don't know when this was, a couple weeks ago, and I was driving home. You could have a scenario in this playoff where Ohio State plays Michigan on Thanksgiving weekend. They're the 2 best teams in the conference, so they play each other again the following week. Then they can play each other again in the playoff. 3 times within a span of 5 weeks.
Go ahead.
I always like having. Now this will never happen because for whatever reason, college football, it doesn't take a page out of the NFL and make the schedule like, I don't know, like smart people do in March. I would want to have those bigger games like. Now I'm kind of countering myself. I don't want to have that situation where 2 big teams are going to consecutively play each other within a short time frame. Like Georgia-Bama. If Georgia-Bama play, week 3, week 4, whatever it is, cool, that's fine. You're a completely different team come the first week of December.
Might have some key injuries. You probably progress.
Like you're just a different team.
Yeah.
Like who you are in week 3, you know your identity by December. You don't know, you're still learning things on the fly in week 3. Then you play each other in the playoff, it's like, okay, then this is different. I don't think that it's like that with Ohio State, Michigan, if that scenario were to happen.
I tend to think that because it's not the same committee anymore, right? That's going to be deciding.
No, there's a new committee coming on. There's a whole new 11 or 12, 13 people coming on this go round.
I tend to think that they're going to do the exact same thing that this past committee has done in terms of they're going to jockey a little bit on purpose. And when a couple teams are interchangeable, seeding-wise, I think they'll mess with it a little bit to avoid that. So I don't believe that unless they meet again in like the national championship or something, I don't believe that you'd get the Ohio State-Michigan matchup 3 times. I agree with you that back-to-back kind of sucks. But that's happened before. Florida's first national title was a rematch against Florida State in the BCS
a lot
system.
of Florida State people didn't like that either.
Yeah, but
and that was too.
And that's a big reason why Florida got in 2006 because people felt like, okay, Ohio State's already beaten Michigan. Like Michigan lost their chance. They shouldn't have another.
And USC lost to UCLA that day too.
Yeah,
which also was a big factor. Do you think that? I feel like recency bias is like completely taken over because we've seen great playoff games. Like every playoff game within the last couple of years has seemed like it's came down to the wire, which finally, I think we forget how those first 6 years were all blowouts. Like Bama, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Clemson. What was the very first? Florida State, Oregon,
Alabama, Michigan State.
And then there was a couple more from the Tua and the Trevor Lawrence that those first semifinal games, and it's like, what are we doing? And then now that, like we said 15 minutes ago about the changing of college football, and there's more parity, it feels like any team now I feel like can be beaten. Like if they played 10 times, they'd split 5-5. I still think you're going to get 3 blowouts in this playoff in a 12-teamer.
So, Is that a reason, though? Is the blowout in the playoff a reason that game shouldn't have been played? Because I've always had a problem with that argument.
It depends on how many times it happens.
So I've always felt like when there was a blowout in those early years in the playoff, and tons of people would say, "See, this is why we don't need these games." No, it's the opposite. It's a good thing that these things happen because this was settled on the football field. And a team got humbled and got their ass beat on the football field. And now we don't have to listen to their fan base yell and scream and bitch and moan about how they would have gone and won a national championship. Right? If UCF in 2017 had made the playoff, we all know that an Alabama or a Georgia would have kicked their ass. We all know that. Right?
Yes.
That would have been better.
It would have been.
Than them hanging
that 100-yard banner.
claiming they're national champions. That would have been better. Right? Florida State this year. I 100% agree with people that say if Florida State had gotten in, they just would have gotten their ass kicked. I agree with that. And that's a good thing. Because now, instead of having to hear Florida State fans tell you about how they got screwed and they got jobbed, I can't speak. They play a game and they lose. That's a good thing. The year that Michigan State made it.
Yeah, 15.
No Michigan State fan can sit here and say they got jobbed because they had an opportunity and they lost. Again, this is a good thing because it's less politics and it's more football. First of all, I'm never going to complain about more football. Dude, you could have 3 more rounds of the playoff, and I may not think it's a good format, but I'm going to watch it because I love ball. Second, again, it eliminates these arguments. It's not a bad thing if a team gets their ass kicked. Teams get their ass kicked throughout the season all the time. Are we going to just have them stop playing the games? Of course not. I don't think when a team loses by 40, I've never seen it as a reason to be like, see, this game didn't need to get played.
So if that's not enough, then now there's been discussion that it's going to go to 14. I mean, I thought
I agree
all along with.
Sorry, I'm cutting you
you're
off.
Good.
I agree with you with the sentiment that it's like, okay, when does this stop? Which I feel like is kind of what you're trying. Like, yeah. Like, okay, are we just going to keep trying to?
Well,
please
and we
everybody?
all knew this was going to happen. Like, they wanted to go to 12, and then we all knew that if you follow the reports and all the, the articles that are being written, that this was going to happen for 2 years, and then people are going to know that, oh, we could make some serious dough here. Hey, ESPN, we could do stuff here, and then we all thought it was going to go to 16. Now, allegedly, there's a 14-teamer. And they're going to make it like the NFL where there's 2 buys and they don't even know what the format is. And there's a big dispute right now between the SEC and the Big Ten commissioner. And they're trying to get more of the ad revenue, or not the ad revenue, of the revenue of the playoff because they have more of the bigger boys as compared to the ACC. Who knows how long this will take. I think they've done a couple of meetings on it already. I don't leave it at 12, see what you do. But the problem is, and I know nobody cares to hear this, we saw, I think it was earlier this week. It's been a long week for me. I don't know if I can't remember if it was last week or earlier this week. ESPN was like, all right, we got a deal. It's worth whatever, $7 or $8 billion. And then there was another report that came out. It was like, no, that's not true. It's like, you have to sell to your advertisers what you want. And the advertisers don't know what they are selling. Like, ESPN can't go to Dr. Pepper and Allstate and say, okay, this is a 12-team playoff. This is the format. This is how it's going to work. We're going to have on campus. They didn't know that till the other day. And then it's the same thing now with this new format. So you can't, just move along all this sudden. That's how, the business of this works. I don't know why we can't sit here and say, okay, let's see the 12-team. Let's see how it rolls, and then let's make a decision. Instead of making a decision now when you don't even know how the 12 team is going to work.
I agree. I do agree with you with the sentiment of at some point we gotta
cap this off,
cut it off. I agree with that. I just think the 4-team presented too many problems from the beginning. I mean, they had a 4-team playoff with 5 power conferences. That was a problem in and of itself.
And it was always never an issue until it was an issue last year.
Right, which is kind of crazy that it was that it never become a problem. I like 12. I don't think 8 would have been bad. I think 8 would have been fine. I think we needed more than 4. How many more is the perfect number? I still don't know. I agree with you that just playing the 12 a couple years and figuring it out and feeling it out would be fine. Let's see how we like it. Let's see if we still find ourselves wishing we had 2 more spots. Or let's see if we find ourselves kind of wishing we didn't.
Yeah, we'll see how it rolls. And then also, put this in your notebook, Greg Sankey wants to move signing day up 2 weeks, which is the same week as conference championships. So it eliminates signing day in the middle of the playoffs. I'm kind of for that. I mean, you're already recruiting in season. Conference championship, only 2 teams are being played in your conference. I don't have an issue with it. I kind of wish they'd put it in August, put it before the season. And, you know, there's been some talk that they want to move the season up a week to start it in August. I don't know. It might happen eventually. I don't think that presidents are going to sign off on that now, because if you do it in August, students are not on campus at that time. Now, the way you fix that is you have big games week 1. Like Florida, Miami, if there's no students on campus, are they still going to sell out?
Of course.
That's how you fix that. You don't put Furman week 1.
Yeah.
That's how I would fix it. So a lot's changing. I'm for change. I'm not going to be one of these grumpy guys that wants to. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the BCS, but whatever.
You're a little bit of a grumpy guy.
Yeah, a little bit.
You're not full blown like get off my lawn.
A little, kind of, sort of.
But you kind of think it.
Yes.
You don't yell it, but you kind of like. I wish these kids
like under my breath. Yeah, I kind of do it.
You're kind of like, it'd be nice if they just like ran away.
All right.
I'm like the young nice one that everybody likes. Right?
Yes. Always got a smile on your face. Yeah. That's what happens when you work in sales. You got to appease everybody.
That's true.
I got to learn that.
You got to put the smile on your face.
Yeah. I talk to clients. Got a big meeting at 9. So John Shipley dropped a ship bomb. Got to be careful how you say that.
Wow. A ship bomb.
A ship bomb, according to Mike Dempsey. So he came on the program today, and he said that Josh Allen...
John Shipley of Sports Illustrated.
Yes, thank you. I get so far ahead of myself. My brain is just like a conveyor belt. It just goes and,
Most of you listening to this pod probably know who that is. Probably know who John Shipley is, but does a great job on the beat for the Jaguars.
Yes, one of the better guys that cover the team. He came on the program today and on Jaguars Today and said Josh Allen gets tagged. No breaking news. And he's basically saying, they're trying to get a framework done. They're trying to get a couple little details. Pretty much, I'm paraphrasing. And like Calvin Ridley pretty much wants to be in Jacksonville. They want to make it happen. I just have the belief that his agent is contacting other teams, and they're saying, hey, you're getting 19, 20 million from Jacksonville, but dude, you could go to Carolina or Kansas City and you can make 26, 27. And players can talk, and that you see it all the time, and all across sports when it comes to free agency, they want to say this and they say, I want to stay with the team. You're seeing that from Chris Jones. I want to stay with the team.
Arden Key said it last year.
Yeah. And a man is as loyal as his options. And money talks. I just have a hard time believing that.
Did you come up with that?
No, I've heard
a man is as loyal as his options?
No, I've heard somebody else say that before.
Damn, you should have taken credit for that, because that was impressive. That sounded smart as hell. You should have said it with a British accent.
Yeah, I should have. I've gone back and forth if Ridley stays. Like earlier today, I heard Chip. I was like, okay, I think Ridley staying. I have no idea what Calvin Ridley, what's going to happen, if he's staying, if he's leaving. That was our question of the day. Does he wear a Jaguar uniform this season? Yes or no?
I think so. Yes, but I think we said it last week. It's like 55-45. It's not like a guarantee. Yeah, he's definitely going to be here. Versus Josh Allen is going to be here. no matter what, whether he's playing under the tag, whether they got a long-term deal. Can I propose this? I'll predict this. If Josh Allen at some point this offseason gets a long-term contract done,
which the people that cover the team expect,
which people expect to happen, I then think, yes, Calvin Ridley will also stay in Jacksonville this coming season.
So let me give you a scenario. Say T. Higgins stays at Cincy. I don't know if you get the extension or franchise tag. Mike Evans stays with Tampa. Michael Pittman goes somewhere, but it's not like a humongous splash. And then Calvin Ridley is the best available receiver.
Yeah.
That helped. That his value, not that it was already high, it goes up even higher because you're the number one.
The Jaguars should be familiar with this exact scenario because this is how Christian Kirk ended up a Jaguar. There were a lot of better receivers than Christian Kirk that offseason that were potentially going to be free agents. They all got tagged. They all got re-signed, whatever. They all stayed on their current teams. And Christian Kirk became really the top guy that was like actually available. Jags had a ton of cap space, and they threw it at him. And he's now a Jaguar.
Well, but wasn't in that offseason, like he was like the first guy to get paid, and then like everybody after him got paid.
Right, but it was they got paid with the teams they're already on.
Okay.
He was like the open market guy.
Okay. I gotcha.
And I want to say that was the same offseason. Yeah, because the next guy that kind of fell in line after him was Tyreek Hill. He had already been traded, I think, to the Dolphins, and he was playing under his Kansas City deal with the Dolphins. But after Christian Kirk got his deal, Tyreek's camp went to the Dolphins, and they said, hell no. Christian Kirk is not making this much more money than Tyreek Hill. That ain't happening. So they restructured his deal. Devontae Adams got his deal done. I think he had already been traded as well. That was a big offseason of wide receiver.
Yeah, there was like 10.
Stuff.
I remember Adam Schefter. I don't know why I remember this. Adam Schefter putting out a tweet like that offseason was like, receivers that got the bag, whatever. And it was like 10 receivers. And Christian Kirk was like, when he got his deal, it was like, oh my gosh. And he wasn't even on that top 10 list. Like that was how, like dudes that set the market, like he set the market and like that market was gone like the second it got signed.
In my opinion, I know everybody has really strong opinions on Trent Baalke, and they're typically negative, and a lot of my opinions towards Trent Baalke are negative as well. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you that he's Howie Roseman. But that Christian Kirk deal is arguably the smartest deal of Baalke's career. Because think about how much better Trevor Lawrence got once Christian Kirk came to Jacksonville.
Oh, and look how bad we were when he got hurt.
Yeah. he's to this day arguably the most crucial weapon that the Jaguars have. And you look at that contract now and it's like it's fine. It's like not bad.
Yeah,
he's certainly not underpaid, but he's not like grossly overpaid anymore. Right. And because Jags had the cap space, first and foremost. They just simply had the room and they had the money to spend. And secondly, at the time, the cap was still pretty low because of COVID. Remember, the cap didn't expand like it typically does for a couple of seasons because of COVID, and Baalke knew that the cap was just going to keep rising and keep rising and keep rising. And if I get Christian Kirk this huge payday right now, then as the cap keeps going up and as more star-studded wide receivers like Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams get their deals, this Christian Kirk deal is going to look like nothing. But, not nothing, but not an egregious overpay. And I got my franchise quarterback, who I desperately need to play better, a really reliable target. And Calvin Ridley, there's a couple different circumstances that make it not the same as Christian Kirk's, but a lot of them are the same. And it's just like you said, T. Higgins, Mike Evans are not hitting the market in all likelihood. Be shocked at this point if those two hit the actual open market and are not on their current teams next year. So Calvin Ridley will probably be the best, most proven wide receiver that is available for teams to go after.
And also, unless
you think Michael Pittman's better than Calvin.
Yeah, let's throw this fact, and then we can wrap up if you want to throw something in at the end. Like this notion that, you could take a home team discount, like that all sounds fine if you're a fan.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. And if Calvin hits free agency, you always have to overpay for a free agent. Unless there's some kind of injury or some kind of like behavior issue, like you're not getting anybody on a cheap discount, and it doesn't happen. It never happens.
No.
So you can't sit here and say, you let him walk, and then you want to go get another free agent wide receiver. You got to pay buku dollars for him. You have to. There's no other option unless you're going to cross your fingers and hope to get somebody in the draft, which there's plenty of.
The classic one was Calais Campbell. When his contract was up after the 2019 season, so many people were like, oh, Calais is a great guy. He's a great locker room guy. He loves being in Jacksonville. He'll take a cheap deal. He might have needed a restructure. That might have been what it was. He'll take a pay cut. No, he's not. He's been arguably the best player on the defense for 3 years. Yeah, what do you mean a pay cut?
And
he can be the best. He can be the best person in the world. He won Walter Payton Man of the Year. He was the best. He was by NFL standards the best human being in the NFL. But I don't care if it's the greatest person you know. Go have their work. Ask them to take a pay cut, and they're gonna say hell no.
And D lineman isn't like a quarterback where you can play until your upper 30s. Like, you have a tiny window to get paid, and it's like now or never. It's not like, hey man, I'm gonna chill because we're good for these next 2 years, and then I'll. That's usually not the case.
And wide receiver as well. Wide receiver probably has a longer shelf life than a D lineman, but not as long as a QB.
No.
If you're a wide receiver, that kind of late 20s window before you turn 30 is the time to sign. If you're that guy, is the time to sign like a 4 or 5 year mega deal. And I guarantee you, if Calvin Ridley hits the open market and someone offers him that, he ain't going to be in Jacksonville.
Probably not. I'm just tired of talking about this every day and the speculating and not understanding what the hell if he signs before the draft and after the draft, what it means for Atlanta. I'm just ready to put pen to paper, see a tag, and let's get the ball rolling on some stuff.
So wait, are you saying that playing more football and doing less politicking is a
yeah. Let's take that before you upload it tomorrow. All right, we went almost an hour. What do you want to? Anything you want to throw in before? You always throw in something.
Yeah. This isn't as much of a surprise topic, just a little bit of a bonus topic. Now that football's over,
okay.
What do you do?
I usually play about one round of golf with Dempsey, and then I take one day to chill. I got God bless, in the month of March, I got 2 track meets on a Saturday. Might have 3.
Because I know you. You're like me. You watch a lot of ball.
Yes.
Like I do.
Yeah.
Like you'll watch, similar to me.
All day.
You'll watch Wednesday night Maction.
Yes.
Right?
I was watching Jacksonville State. Now, granted, I know somebody else on the team every Tuesday night. But,
I'm the same way. Yeah. Dude, you're telling me I got Bowling Green at Western Michigan on a Wednesday night?
Now, I'm not gambling on it. But
even if I'm not, I'll still watch.
Okay.
But I'll gamble on it a lot. Don't get me wrong. But even if I'm not, I watch every snap of football that I possibly can from the minute it kicks off in September to the last play of the Super Bowl.
Top 3 sports that I watch on the weekends,
But even if it's not sports, are you you can give me a ranking, but are you watching more sports? Are you getting into shows? What are you doing? I'm your friend, so I know, but I'm just talking about for the dialogue of the podcast.
Talking out loud. I try to watch a show. When I try to watch a show, there's so many times where I'll get started and I just don't get into it.
Hey, you're not really a big show guy.
No, I'm not. Or a movie guy.
Mal and I are huge show people. Dylan knows Mal is my fiance. We watch after we sign off here, we're gonna go watch True Detective.
Yeah.
Dude, great show.
I don't know. I play some Call of Duty, but that's because like I paid like $70 for like the damn online fee for PlayStation, so I feel like I'm making it worth my time since I paid that $70, and it's just I only play with like my friends. Like it's not fun by yourself. Play a little Call of Duty. Watch a little golf. I might watch the end of NASCAR race. I'll watch college basketball now because it's getting to the end of it.
I thought you were like this huge NASCAR guy.
No, that's just stick.
So this was all. This was all for naught.
Yeah,
you're not going to be locked into the Pepsi 400.
We didn't even talk about the Pepsi 400. We didn't even talk about the Daytona 500. That
I don't even remember who won. I already forgot.
The 24 car, Ray Kendrick, Jeff Gordon's old car.
Why? Okay, so I got a question about NASCAR.
Okay.
So I know in baseball, like the MLB, for example, has like a significant Hispanic influence. Like a lot of Hispanics are in the MLB,
Yes.
right? So because of that, you have a lot of traditionally Hispanic like last names. Like you'll have a lot of Ramirez and Rodriguez and names like that. Why do NASCAR drivers seem to all have similar last names? They're all just white dudes, right?
Because like Earnhardt's a big name. Wallace is a big last name.
Like I can hear a name and be like, that's a NASCAR
Yeah.
name. Hendrick, that's such a NASCAR name.
Well, he's an owner. So you got like 4 big owners. You got like Joe Gibbs, who used to be the football coach from Washington.
Yeah.
You got Penske, which the Penske trucks you see.
Jameer Gibbs' father.
Yeah.
Not actually.
Same but different. No. You got Hendrick, and then you got like a couple others. Basically, it's like, how do I explain it? Like,
They're just running the family, or is it all these people's sons?
It starts in the family, and you have kids, and like you start racing when you're like 4 or 5 years old, and like the smallest go-kart, and then you just work your way up the racing pyramid, I guess. So you start like with go-karts, and then you go on dirt, and then you get like a car that's sort of like NASCAR, which is like mostly short track, so it's like my uncle does. And then you just eventually work your way up. But it's mostly family. Like, rarely do you see some regular dude just be like, hey, I want to start racing. You're 14. Like, no, it don't work like that. It's a lot like, like a golfer. Like, you're golfing when you're a toddler in your diapers, and you just work your way all the way up.
So it's all these names because it's the same like 8 families that just all do NASCAR.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because like, I don't know anything about NASCAR drivers. If you asked me, with no context, and I didn't know who he was, if you asked me what does Martin Truex Jr. do for a living, I'd be like, that guy's a NASCAR driver, 100%.
It is like Bill Elliott, awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Georgia.
Oh my God.
His son races Chase Elliott. Obviously, the Earnhardts. Gibbs has, I think it's his grandson that races. Who I can't think of another family. Like the whole Wallace family. Like you have Rusty Wallace, Mike Wallace, Kenny Wallace. Like all those are all like cousins and related somehow. Yeah, that's pretty much how it works.
Steelers legend Mike Wallace.
Yes. Same but different again. No, but I mean, like, NASCAR used to be so entertaining. Like, you would watch a race, and it would be it's the way the cars are, I guess, because of safety, and it's obviously you have to. But, like, you could watch a race, and there would be so many lead changes. And now it's not like that. Like, Daytona was like everybody single file, and it's just one little lead change here, and then you might get another lead change here. And then, like, it's not entertaining.
You're not a big Car of Tomorrow guy?
I'm so shocked that you remember that.
Car of Tomorrow, bro.
That was 2007.
What do you mean? Dude, my dad's a huge, or not really as much anymore, but he used to be a big NASCAR guy.
Yeah, I used to watch every practice.
The Car of Tomorrow.
And qualifying, and then just... And it's a lot like baseball. Like, baseball used to be pretty good, and then it's just like, over the years, just kind of... I still like baseball. I like listening to baseball, like, on the radio. Like, I love Gator Baseball. Jeff Cardozo calling games. Very soothing.
Jeff is a legend, bro. I love Jeff.
Jeff is great. And then, like, same with the Braves. But it's just not entertaining.
But you're not, like, now that the Gators are pretty good and we're getting close to March, you'll spend a little bit of time watching basketball.
Yeah, like I'll watch.
But you're not like a
huge
huge hoops fan.
Yeah, no.
Like, dude, I love basketball.
I cannot name 5. I can't even name 3 players of college basketball in the entire sport. The Muhammad guy who just got suspended from Alabama, him, LeBron's son, and then 2 Gator players.
LeBron's son.
There you go. That's my tutorial beginning, middle, and end.
Are you big? You're not a big NBA person either. You don't really.
No,
you don't really watch
I watched the end of LeBron and Steph the last 5 minutes of a couple weekends ago, which was great.
Dude, I'll like mostly be locked into college while it's the Gators playing, and I like North Carolina too because I got my whole mom's side of family's from there, and they're good this year. So I'll be watching them throughout the tournament, and then once college is over, like I'll really because the NBA playoffs are about to start at that point. I'll be really locked into the NBA playoffs, like, and I'll be paying like close attention, watching games from start to finish until the finals.
Yeah, I probably won't get locked in until conference finals.
And then the finals, normally ends in early June, and then I got nothing until training camp. Then it's like it's really time to dial into the shows.
Yeah, I like college baseball when you get to June, and then July is like really like our dead period. Like you get the dog days of the MLB. There's no new storylines for any NFL.
How many shows have you watched start to finish in your life, you think?
For
like just TV show.
Like binge watching?
Yeah.
Around 10. Like the ones I've watched recently is like The Sopranos during COVID. Suits was phenomenal.
Okay.
That's about it.
That's already not bad.
Yeah, like I can't get in like the Game of Thrones or
you're wrong.
What was the other popular one?
Stranger Things?
Yeah, I can't just.
Dude, those two shows are probably the best two shows I've ever seen.
House of Cards.
They're so good. Seen. The one show I need to give another chance because people are obsessed with it is Succession. Succession starts slow, and everyone's told me it starts slow, but then it gets like insane, and myself and my fiance struggled to finish, but we need to give it another shot. We've talked about it. We're going to give that another shot.
Yeah, I need to start watching movies. Part
of the problem with Succession is we're trying to give it a shot during the summer, and then football season started.
Yeah, and then you forget about all that stuff.
Yeah, when football comes on, dude, I'm not watching.
Yeah. Faux show. All right, that'll do it for, what is this, episode 5?
5.
Yeah. All right, I remembered. Episode 5. Denmark and Marsh at 1010XL. Denmark. I was about to say 1010XL.com. At 1010XL Denmark on Twitter, at 1010XL Graham. That'll do it. Catch us next week, and that'll do it. Y'all have a good weekend.